Kelly Mitchell, the Wine Siren. I am here today with Emily Luchetti. She is a pastry chef extraordinaire and has worked for some of the biggest names in the business in the Bay Area. Not only that, but she sits on the James Beard Foundation board. So I would love to welcome you,
Thank
Emily.
you. It's so great to be here and talk to you.
It's wonderful to have you and so exciting you've been at this a few years.
Oh, 30 years. Long time.
30 years. And we're
The food
talking
business.
from...
But I'm only 25.
29. I know. I like it. I can't figure out the math on that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your journey, because you've gone from Stars, which I think everybody knows about Stars. I mean, it was a landmark restaurant, and now you're doing there are 3 restaurants that you...
Actually, 4, soon to be 5. We're giving birth to a new one.
Oh my goodness. Tell us about
Yeah.
the restaurants, and if you can, please tell us about the newest one that's being
Yeah,
launched
well,
as well.
I work with a big night restaurant group, and they have Marlowe, Park Tavern, Cavalier, and Leo's Oyster Bar. And then we're also opening Petite Marlowe soon. That's going to be a wine bar.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
so and they're great neighborhood restaurants with just delicious food. And I was really fortunate to come into the food world in San Francisco just when it was really starting, and just everyone was so excited about food. And so I saw the whole kind of food revolution blossom from the ground up, and I was part of it. And it was just such an exciting time for the last, many years just to be in the food business in San Francisco, because there's just so much great food here.
And it's not showing any signs of slowing down.
No,
anytime
it's
soon.
not. It's not. The consumer's getting more educated, the restaurateurs are getting more educated, and it's only going to go up.
That's exciting. I want to speak a little bit to the people out there and maybe it's the young women out there that are thinking about getting into this space. How has it been for you? I mean, because you're literally a pioneering woman in this space when starting 30 years ago. What was it like? What was the landscape for women like in food in those days?
Well, I think what was really interesting about food in those days, it was like people with college educations were just getting into the food business. I went to college, and when I worked at Stars in the early days, everyone had a college education. And it was just because but at the same time, we didn't want to do anything that was related to our profession and our schooling. We really wanted to be involved in food. And we figured out that we'd figure out how to make it pay for itself as we went along. And now I see what happening is that a lot of chefs and cooks I should say in the beginning, they're much more premeditated. It's like, I'm going to go into this career, I'm going to figure this out. And so they're not as kind of organic, and they're not just like being in it because of the process of they just love food. They want to kind of see they want to see the end result before they see the beginning.
Understood. So this was more of an organic process for you. Right. Interesting.
And I think for people that want to get into the business today, my biggest piece of advice is go volunteer somewhere, whether it's, if you're talking about pastry specifically, go volunteer in a restaurant, go volunteer in a bakery, and see if you really like the business. Because I see so many people that go to cooking school, and they come out and they're like, and they work for a restaurant for 6 months, they're like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. It was like, well, didn't you investigate? Didn't you, do some research? And they really haven't. And the other thing is, when I first started as a cook, the only place you could really be a part of the food world was in restaurants. Now there's so many things that you can do. You can work for magazines, you can work for blogs, you can do a business out of your home. There's so many more options to do.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your process, like your creative process. You're going to be providing, 4 restaurants right now with pastries and the various things that go along in that culinary aspect, as well as a 5th coming on the way. How do you manage all of that, and how do you stay on the cutting edge?
Well, I think you really have to do the desserts that speak to you, or do the food, even if you're whatever kind of chef you're, do the stuff that speaks to you and that comes out of you. I think if you're always trying to chase the newest trend or do this, you're not being true to who you are in a creative sense. So, and I think, my career has been so long that there was a phase when I did that, and I felt like I was always out of sync with my body, my creative spirit, and felt like I was doing things for other people rather than myself. That being said, you still have to take, account into what people want. Like, one of the things that we do at all the restaurants, they're very neighborhood restaurants with really good food, as I said, but at the same time, the desserts we do are a little bit on the smaller side now. And they're things that are just very homey and very comforting. Because I think, too, people don't necessarily want a big massive dessert where they just feel like they can't walk afterwards. They just want a little bite of something sweet. So we do things that are just simple and just the flavor has to be spot on, because that's the thing when it comes to dessert. If the flavor isn't 100% there, 110% there, there's no point in eating it. There's no point in taking a second bite, and you should just live without it, you know? And also, desserts fill an emotional response in us, where we eat salmon and chicken and vegetables to physically stay alive. Dessert you eat because it fills you, emotionally, and it just tastes so delicious, and it just fills up a part of your soul.
I love
and if
it.
it's not really good, it's just not worth that trip to the gym. Where a really good dessert, it's like, I don't care, I'm going to the gym tomorrow.
Absolutely, I'm with you on that one. So what do you see as being like some of the maybe trends that are changing? Are there things new ingredients that you're using more of? I mean, a lot of people now there's this whole gluten situation, and it is a situation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
How are you addressing that, and are you changing some of the core foundations, staying away from wheat flour or more almond flour? How does that
I
work?
think the whole gluten-free fad trend, whatever you want to call it, has been very good. I think parts have been very good because there is a whole group of the population out there either that is has celiac disease or allergic to it, or really just feel bad if they eat it. That being said, I think sometimes desserts and white flour get a bad rap because everyone says, well, I can't eat that. It's like you can have a little bit of it. Most people, it's just moderation.
Absolutely.
But I think at the same time, it's allowed a lot of chefs to start creating desserts with almond flour, with a lot of different other ingredients, and we've created a whole new flavor profile for in our dessert. So I think that's really good. And all our menus, we will offer something that's gluten-free. And sometimes it's just by accident. It could be like one of the desserts I do is I call it a blood orange creamsicle, and it's a vanilla panna cotta with blood orange sorbet. So there's no flour or anything in there. But we always offer an option that's gluten-free. But I think what's the other side is the bad part of the gluten-free trend that's happening is starting to wane, and people are like, I like bread. Especially in the Bay Area, bread is so amazing. They're like, why did I give this up for so long? I think I'm going to eat it again. I may not eat 4 loaves of bread a day or, 4 slices, but I'm going to enjoy it.
Beautiful. How do you get inspired? Like, where do you find the inspiration to, whether it's to push hard another 80-hour week because it's a heavy work week that you have to put into
Well,
this
I think,
day.
now that I'm later in my career, I do more kind of consulting and hands-on, so I don't have to do that kind of stuff. But
Beautiful.
I still get busy in so many other things. If I go and do an event, I get jazzed up because I'm seeing other chefs, and when you talk to other chefs, you really get a lot of energy and passion for what you're doing because you're just talking to others that have the same thing. And when you're in a kitchen working and either to do service or you're creating desserts, you're often by yourself, or you're with a bunch of younger people that work for you. You don't really have many of your colleagues around. So I kind of get excited about just when I also do an event, like if it's a big walk around tasting. I hate it when you go to walk around tasting and you've got your wine glass in one hand and they give you food and you need a fork. It's like you need a third hand. So I always think of desserts that are just pick-up desserts that people can have so they can just, graze by. So then I think, okay, if it's a pickup dessert, it has to be the best little thing that you can have that doesn't need a lot of sauces and garnishes and bells and whistles. So I often think for creativity about what the kind of event that I'm going to do. And even seasonally in California, we're so fortunate with all the produce and the berries and even the citrus that we get, that every year as the season revolves, I see those new cara oranges or the blueberries when they come in, and I just can't help but get excited. It's like, what am I going to do with it this time?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. If you could speak to your younger self and share some advice, what would you say?
I would say don't sweat the small stuff. And I would also say enjoy the moment, but also don't waste time. You want to enjoy every moment, but stay focused, stay guided, always have a plan. But if your plan changes, accept that and relish it and embrace it. Because when you're 22 and you have a plan of what you want to do, I started out as a savory cook and I wanted to be a chef, and like 5 years into it, I didn't want to do it anymore. And then so I switched to pastry because I thought, well, I have nothing to lose. I'll see what happens. And I woke up and a half an hour into it, and it was like, oh my God, I found my calling. And if I hadn't been ready and able in my mind to change and always went after that original goal, I wouldn't have found the real passion of my life. So I think you have to always have a plan, but just be flexible and just adapt to it and just enjoy life, because the days are long, but the weeks and the months and the years are short. So just enjoy it.
That's excellent advice. Emily Luchetti, it's such a pleasure and an honor to spend some time with you today.
Thank you. It was
so
my
much.
pleasure.
That's a wrap.